Well, greetings once again.
Hey,
How's it going, homie?
pretty good.
Good.
Yeah,
You ready for this?
I am. No, I gotta give you a disclaimer. Normally, you know how I'm just like so placid and agreeable
Yeah,
about all our
always. That's what I
topics.
think. Placid, agreeable. I think Aaron Shaver.
You do. Um, I'm gonna be really difficult today. I've been waiting for this one, and I have a surprise. I have a special surprise for you.
Oh, surprises from Aaron. Okay.
Mhm.
Again, I feel the people who watching along warm up your screen capture. This will be see Brian's jaw dropped
This
open.
may be memeable.
Oh goodness, I can't wait. Well, so topic, what the heck are we talking? We were on this identity and access management. We were covering the wheel of IAM pain, and it's back to, we agreed, I think that the next one was authorized top right, authorization services over on your side there in blue. And we took a break last week to cover something that was topical for us to go over phishing. That was a fun one, but authorization services today. And I can't wait for your curveball. That just sounds great. Okay, here we go. So,
Gonna snuggle up to that mug there.
yeah, try to find some comfort in my cup of joe here. Authorization services. So I always have to decide do we need to help people out with, what this means? And this is one I believe we do have to give some context
But do it as simple as possible.
Okay, that seems fair. So, screens on top of screens on top of screens.
I like that. This is good. This is simple.
This at least is the basic of, we're talking about the one on the right, authorization. And I feel a little embarrassed simplifying it down this far, but I shouldn't, because it kind of boils down to, I hear people use authentication and authorization interchangeably, the one for the other, but authentication is about, multi-factor or username and password. It's about who are you, and,
can you prove your identity?
Can you prove your identity? And again, we don't always think about it this way, but we're using that username and password. Yep, I'm Brian Quick. Are you Brian Quick? Yes, I am. Here I am. Here's my password or my thumbprint or my little sample of my DNA or whatever. We're not talking about that. We're talking about authorization, which is the determining what people are allowed to do. And so, hopefully this, yes. Log in and access the file system, yes. Get into everybody's salary data in HR system, maybe not. At least that's the theory. I also, I think you'll really appreciate this, that I also boil this down, authorization, I think of as this. Do you know what this is, Aaron?
I'm not hip to all the slang of you young people these days.
This is authorization, I think, is about check-in permissions.
I love what.
What do you think?
I think that's really good. I think we should have the chicken of AAA. That's gonna be my. Oh, I love that one. Oh, okay, that's your one meaningful contribution to this conversation today.
Seems like I had a surprise as well.
All right. Yes. Okay.
All
okay.
Right.
So
here's
what I'm gonna do, and I want to put a twist on our discussion today.
Okay.
And normally I play along with all your corporate bureaucrat stuff. And today I would like to talk about authorization in the context of personal accounts. Okay. Not like pull outside of the corporate world of how do we have a help desk and a help desk or HR or those bits. I'm not minimizing that.
Let's not start there. Okay.
But let's not start there. I actually think there's a bigger problem with authorization when we look outside of the corporate world.
Okay.
And I've been experiencing this a little bit myself, and I think this would be an interesting discussion for us. And I think covers philosophically some of the struggles inside corporate America, but this may be more existential for us.
Okay.
And so I've been on this journey to clean up my digital footprint.
Your Aaron Shaver PhD digital footprint.
Yeah. Okay. I have all these accounts out there, right? That have
hundreds of them.
Yeah, literally.
Yeah.
It's kind of like there's this trail of waste and destruction, right? That we all leave in this digital footprint. And it's one thing to change our passwords and have good password hygiene. And a big piece of authorization services for me is rule rot. Like 17 years ago, when I was in TriFit or whatever the thing was, this account was created for me that has my social security number, has access to, maybe it was linked to my bank account, linked to my PayPal, and was authorized to all of these other first or third party services. And I think as we progress through our lives, that's very similar to the issues that we have inside of an organization.
Yeah.
And then we have this idea of people hijacking our accounts through authorization mechanisms of, I'm not on Instagram, but I have an Instagram account. I'm not on Facebook, but I have a Facebook account. And here's why. Because if I don't, then someone else can just go authorize that account under my identity, and then not only be able to authenticate, but have the ability to authorize that account to speak to other things. And so I'm curious, from your perspective, how do you think about managing that in the personal world of longitudinal authorization management of all your banks and stuff like that?
Boy, I love the premise. And I'll step back even a little bit further from that and say, we had our authentication authorization, and I think people are only, at a personal level, in my experience, and I'm not talking about my Aunt Sally. I don't have an Aunt Sally, by the way, but if I did, my Aunt Sally, I'm not, there's that kind of problem of, she uses the same password 1, 2, 3 everywhere.
Yeah.
I'm taking
setting that bit of it aside.
Setting that aside. I think people have risen to the level of oh my gosh. I mean, there are hundreds and hundreds of passwords and accounts that I need just on the authentication side. And I am seeing some, maybe not my Aunt Sally, but my brother Bob. I don't have a brother Bob. But if I did, I
He
have,
would be terrible if you did.
well, that we're getting to a point where I am seeing people use good password managers and use discrete password, starting to understand the reality of people aren't trying a million passwords for you. They're getting one of your passwords that's been compromised on one of those sites. And then they're trying that username password combination at 1,000 sites you might use. And so, that password stuffing is a problem. And we're starting to deal with that kind of, the
Sort of.
wasteland of the digital. I mean, I'm at least seeing it entering the consciousness. It's 80% of people aren't doing it, but I'm finding 10
but
or
we
15,
discuss it.
Yeah, 10 or 15 or 20%. But that authorization piece, it's interesting you say that. And to me, to help people out, you might even be a smart IT people and you may not have connected with this conversation yet. But I think about, like, if you go into Google does a good job of this, I find it's hidden away a little bit, but there's a place where you can go and say, what devices are authorized on my account and what other services are tied into,
what third-party services have you given? Have you authorized to use that identity?
And so if you go find that page in the Google ecosystem, you can see here are all the devices that you said, yes, this is usable on my Google account. And you can find all the third party, like, you joined a service called MyFit, as one of your New Year's resolutions, and they still have access to all of this information in your profile. And that could include things like send emails as read your, I mean, there are all sorts of things that those permissions or, the authorizations, the chicken has given permission.
Well, that does a bit of it. And I'm a big fan of that. I myself am moving towards centralizing my identity so that I do have a place to go and say, and I get it, from an OSINT perspective, it's like, well, Google's the man. And the reality is if I go create 100 accounts online, I have to manage each one of those individually. Correct. So at least this, from tying my authentication and my authorization together, I think centralizing my identity and the authentication services is valuable because at least I can say you can't authenticate anymore. But there's even things like, I don't know if you're a PayPal or Zoom user, but I'm even more of a fan of those things recently when it comes to authorization of payments, because it's a very similar problem in that, if you go sign up for, I know you're big into bodybuilding, so you probably get like Bodybuilders Monthly magazine.
You have no idea.
Yeah. Oh, I don't. Yeah. Whatever it is, like you end up, we all do it. We are like, oh, this is a good idea. And I'll pay my $3.99 or $19.99 a month. And it spawns some account for you that, there is an authentication bit, but is authorized back to your payment systems or your bank account.
Yeah. Or your health data is a common one.
Ooh, I was going to get to that one too. Yeah. Right. Because like how many different EMRs do you exist in and have MyChart accounts or different things? And all those have different authorization levels. And I think as we learn about this in the personal world of, at some point we need to go back and revoke authorization that we gave, because at one point it seemed like a good idea. And in my life, that doesn't really last that long. There's never a point where I look back 15 years ago and I'm like, this still feels like a good idea.
Yeah.
And I guess, how do you think about managing the authorization bit? And I'm going to give you just a wee bit more context on, sure. So I go into my Google identity and I revoke access to RhinoFit. There's still a RhinoFit account somewhere with my name and address and has that identity in it and authorization to my credit card or hooks to other things. as an individual, like what can we do to manage that
Yeah.
sprawl?
Well, as you know, I think you and I are both on an end of a spectrum, maybe one or more spectrums.
I was gonna say I'm on a spectrum, but
and being on that spectrum, I have these annual processes. To me, it's New Year's resolution time, and it used to be I would go reset the passwords individual, before. This goes back a ways. So before I got real comfortable with, I'm going to delegate that to a password manager and move on. But there are annual processes that I maintain. So at least annually doing that, we talked about the Google, but that's something I do, that I go and look and say, am I still using all of these devices? And do I still want all of these accounts that have gotten authorization to do things as me? Do I still want all of these things authorized? And there are Apple and Facebook, there are equivalents in many of those common ecosystems of, even if it's just you on Apple Pay have authorized this company to draw funds out of your account for a subscription. And so I do, as part of that annual review process, I do the kind of the centralized piece. And then I go and I actually, this is hard as hell to do, but I go and I budget some time to actually go to those sources and things. It's like, I'm never using this anymore. And I go and I do spend, not like dozens of hours, but I spend some time on accounts. It's like, I don't want
disabling accounts or
disable or delete, do some research and say, what's the process of making that go away?
Well, maybe even
before
that, how do you go about identifying all these accounts?
Yeah.
Like if we're applying NIST to our life.
Yeah. Well, again, this is to me another benefit of password managers is that my reality of and I understand the sort of the challenge there of, that's my version, that's my view of the reality. What's my digital estate, my personal digital estate or footprint? I have to start somewhere. And you may know a better, a comprehensive online place I could go. But what I'm aware of is that I go into my password manager and there are hundreds of entries there. And I at least scroll through, what used to be, which passwords do I need to change, has turned into, do I even want this account to exist anymore? And do I have a method to go do that? And I will say, I have mixed emotions about European privacy laws. But in this context,
I was thinking that same thing.
Yeah,
this matters. Yeah,
in the GDPR, the European privacy, there's this, what they call human right. There's this right to be forgotten, which is,
I love that. Right.
Yeah, you're supposed to be able to go, and this has a business application as well. If you haven't addressed this and it's a business in the US, you need to support people's authorization and revocation of authorization, because if you aren't covered, I don't do business with European on a, we know that California privacy laws, the day is coming. There's going to be a law of the land privacy law. Some people will say it's already there, but that right to be forgotten. There are sort of the larger sites like why does Google allow you to review and revoke?
Because but they just did that.
Yeah.
But
that's
new.
In support of this right to be forgotten.
It is. And I think we're working towards a day, personally, where we're going to have to say, if, the account's been inactive for a certain period of time, or whatever new license agreements have not been acknowledged, or the authorizations have not been reapproved after a certain amount of time, the account needs to go dormant and get locked.
Yeah.
And a lot of these organizations, it'll just stay open indefinitely.
That, again, I'm not big on regulation, but I can't.
I would support that one.
I would support that one, but I can't imagine a business that would do that. A publicly traded business in particular.
Yeah, I get it, man. But at some point, as people who are able, like, we have a social responsibility to champion some of this stuff.
I'm with you. I'm with you there. I mean, of course, and we see this in Twitter. Businesses like the inflated numbers of even dormant account. It increases the valuation of the business essentially. But
you asked, I have a different approach than what you do, and I do lay it on me. I do some of the same things as you. Of, hey, I'm going to go check in Google. I'm not a social media guy, much to other people's chagrin. If I disappeared, that would bring me so much joy.
I was watching your TikTok videos just the other day. What are you talking about?
Yeah, right.
Talk about making your teenagers horrified. Yeah. Anyway, go ahead.
So, I love domain reconnaissance.
Yeah.
Speaking of existing along a spectrum. And I have a Python bot that, on whatever frequency I choose to run it, will go to every possible URL that's been spidered that has a password reset function on it. And if it can find my personal email address, will issue a password reset. And once that happens, and yes, I get hundreds of emails in my inbox that passwords were just reset, but that account's no longer really effective anymore without going through that password process. And I may choose to actually go reset it because it's an account that I use. And I developed this because I had this particular scenario where I was a member of, like, a fitness organization. They used this third-party company to create all these accounts, and then the gym went out of business. I call the software company that does the hosting, and they're like, we can't delete accounts for you. It doesn't matter how much ID you provide to us. You have to go back to the gym owner. And the gym doesn't exist anymore. Yeah. So I have this account that I'm sure has terrible security, and I'm in this loop. So the best thing I can do is issue a password.
I think they call that a do loop, right? Yeah.
Yeah, a doom loop. Yeah.
A doom loop. Yeah.
So that's where I got so I do that on I would say at least an annual basis, is force issue password resets. And so it's similar to password stuffing in that I don't know whether I have an account at this place or not. Because let's be honest, sometimes you sign up and you're on a magazine's website and you sign up, but it's really just an iframe to some other third-party service you're signing up to. And, like, how do you even track all that stuff? Yeah. And so, in short of regulations, I think a Python script that goes out and does basically reset stuffing into accounts is the best thing I've ever been able to come up with for that. But I know that's not what concerns me is, like, how does your brother Bob do that if he's not a software developer?
Yeah, I don't think they're in this. To me, don't typically like regulation, but there's got to be some, either industry standard that comes, or, unfortunately has to be, as right to be forgotten has done, has forced it on people. I don't have a good answer. I don't think.
So let me connect this to the corporate world.
Yeah, let's do. It's great conceptual conversation. This is the kind of loop. It's the kind of wrench you throw that I'm like, oh, that didn't hurt. That was all right. That was a good conversation.
If you could dodge a wrench, you can dodge a ball. So some of the premise that we set here about, like, personal ownership of authorization, I think one of the challenges in corporate IT that we've kind of built into the psychology around technology is that a group of people in a dark basement somewhere are responsible for my authorization to things. And I can wander aimlessly through my life because someone's protecting me.
Right.
And I think, that was, if it wasn't created by corporate technologists, it was certainly enforced by corporate technologists.
Oh, yeah. I could go.
And,
I won't. I could go on and on.
yeah.
Like, how did we end up here? Just super quickly, we started with a company was small at some point, and it's like we trust everybody. Everyone has full access except to the things they don't. And then we became publicly traded. It's like, oh, that's
you
ugly.
can't do that.
We gotta fix that, and we got to do periodic access reviews and lock this stuff. And we live in a world, most company and multiple acquisitions, where like we have no hope. I've been in the last few companies I've been in. Your hope of cleaning up the file structure, like everybody, we should clean up the file structure. That ain't never going to happen. You're never going to fix those permissions or roles, or like it's not going to happen. The complexity.
And this is a decentralized problem in which we're trying to centralize a solution. And you're going to get like delusional, like mad scientist Aaron here for a minute.
Yeah, please.
I think decentralized problems require decentralized solutions. And we talk about like self-service under user management, but I think there needs to be self-service under authorization. And I when we talk about that, I think at first that evokes this, like, I just get to decide what I am going to give myself access to. But I think security awareness training, where we were having our argument last week about phishing and security awareness training, I think authorization and security awareness training are a more mature fit than pen testing or phish testing in security awareness training. I believe there should be at least an annual activity that we go through inside of our organizations where each user has to demonstrate why they need continued access via a questionnaire or something.
Yeah.
And then say, okay, well, if you're going to continue that access, then you get some special training about what it means to have access to that data.
I hate when I love your mad scientist ideas, but let me bridge bridge a gap here, which is I love the premise. And I think about in a lot of companies, how we're managing like there's the whole problem of setting roles and setting the centralized roles and rules. And I'll agree with you. Like it's hard. It's so hard that most people struggle to do it. And I was all prepared to talk about how to make that suck a little less in today's conversation.
Now I'm just changing it all up on you.
I'm not saying we do still need to do it, and it's going to be horrible and difficult. And that's
day 0 of provision.
Yeah, no.
I'm interested in day 784.
Yeah, 7,000.
Sure.
84. Okay. And what your concept makes me think of is we are in any sort of regulated organization. We're doing these periodic access reviews, and we do them really terribly. Which is we send them to. I send it something to your boss that says, here are 400 people that report to you, and here are per person, 400 times 1,000 of individual permissions that they have. Tell me which of these are, sign off.
If you could spend the next 72 hours reviewing this detailed spreadsheet.
I've lived in that world of, somebody who manages a call center and has literally hundreds of employees that they have to do that access certification for. And anybody who's done this will say amen. Like those people come back and say, I did the math, you idiot. It's going to take me a month to do your user access certificate. I'm not doing it.
Well, and it needs to be part self-service,
right?
But it needs to be paid. This needs to be incremental, right?
Here's my quick bridge the gap of maybe someone's done it, but I've never thought about include the loop of ask people to review and certify their own access. And as revolutionary as that sounds, you would accomplish more than the periodic access reviews. I find
you could do it continuously.
Correct. Yeah.
What if we even made it into a little CAPTCHA for your login of like, oh, hey, instead of a robot of training ML models to recognize fire engines.
Well, and you could do it in a method of, conceptually to say, there are certain things like if you don't take the time to provide a rationale, not for everything, but certain, things that we think are
Right, because
you
you
know,
have your
like,
birthright, right? Those we set aside, but all these
yeah,
special access things above it, if you don't take time to review it, you lose it.
yeah, correct. And that will become a motivator for, oh, I actually have to do this. And I actually, involving people in the challenge, I actually believe that people would rise to that challenge. They would say, oh, that makes, I can
So
see
I
why.
think we need to figure out if this technology exists.
Yeah, that's a
I've
good one.
never heard of anybody that solved this problem
So
this way.
if you're again one of the dozen of people that watch this, write in the comments or reach out to us on me because you're not on LinkedIn, but reach out and let me know if there's a solution that implements that. But I
If
think you're
not, I'm gonna write some math.
yeah, I think you're onto something, Shaver. Dang it.
Oh, dang it. Okay. Well, I think we've wasted another half an hour of people's time.
Well, fantastic. All right, man. Good
Okay.
talk, and we'll
All right.
back at it next week. All
All
right.
right. Catch you
Later.
later.
Bye.